Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to our winter series of Infusion of Joy. My name is Deb McGregor, and I'm so pleased that you've joined us because, trust me, you are not going to want to miss this show. Today, we are going to talk all about getting organized in 2022, and our very special guest today is Tammy Schatzko of Tidy Tammy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we had to get organized to be here, right? I had to throw that in.
Right?
It's our little humor, right? So Tammy, before we get started, I want to let's at least give people a little bit idea of you and your background, because organizing is something you've actually been doing for quite some time.
Yeah, over a decade. Yep, professionally. Yep.
And I was trying to remember, like, how did you actually get started? Like, what prompted you to want to dig into the organizing field?
I think it's because I find it kind of fascinating how we deal with our clutter and our stuff. And I never really realized that my own way of dealing with my chaos in my life, like when I can't control things that are happening around me, it makes me feel much better if I can tidy up a space that I'm living in or take control of something around me. It helps me feel like I'm in control, or I can face the chaos that I'm not in control of. I never really realized that that's not how everybody did it. And I think I had some pivotal moments in 2009, 2010, 11 in there that I realized that that skill set that I had to do that could help other people with their chaos. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I just continued down the path of certification and getting the master's in human behavior, because it's all fascinating. But the most fascinating piece is being able to help people by doing something that I'm innately good at, and sharing that skill set with other people to help them and support them in their goals.
Absolutely. And you've helped hundreds of people. Like, this is not just, oh, I've only helped a couple. You've helped a lot of people. And of course, with technology, you're even able to do that online as well. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, because I know people are going to want to get in touch with you. So let's talk about what happens when the new year, it's like it flips over and everybody says, oh, I'm going to get organized. I'm getting control of my life, and this is what this is going to look like. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about, I love that you have this background in human behavior, because there is something about this, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think that it's so in line with getting fit or going to the gym or losing weight. Like the analogies and the paths are so very similar. We go in all gung ho, like we're going to get this all done. And all of a sudden we're maybe a couple days in and we're realizing there's a lot more happening here than just putting away a few items. Like, it's overwhelming. And then people, they get stuck and they stop because that overwhelm just tips them, and then they just don't do anything. It's like people stopping going to the gym after a while. It doesn't become a habit. They stop going, same thing. So I like to treat it kind of more like a marathon instead of a sprint. And in my way of working with people, I want to create systems with them that they will be able to maintain without me, basically work myself out of a job if at all possible, because I think everybody has their own way of organizing things. And my dream is always to pull that out of them with them and create those systems so that they can do it without me. I'm happy to come back and help, but ideally, in a perfect world, they're able to maintain their own space.
Yeah. One thing I love about working with you, and I have worked with you, is that when you came in, you just sat down and said, okay, talk to me about your lifestyle. Talk to me about how you function. Talk to me about how you use this space. And let's come up with what's going to work for you. And we worked side by side on it. And what's awesome is now I may even go to work on something, and I literally I joke about this, but it's not really joking because it's true. I'll say, I'm channeling my inner Tammy. What would she say? What questions would she ask me now? And it is because of that initial work that we have done together. There is that ability to be able to actually do this on my own at this point. However, of course, there's the emergency phone call to you when I get stuck, right? Because we all get stuck. There's that point for everybody.
Yes, including myself, So I get it. I like to tell people that just because, or people will say, I bet your house is totally organized. And I'll be like, well, there's a place for everything. But no, it's not always tidy and picked up. Like, we have those times in our lives where everything is just insanely busy. But the nice thing about being organized is that when that insaneness kind of calms down a little bit, you can reset and everything has a home, and it doesn't take that long. You have to make decisions because it's already in play for you. And that's always the best benefit, in my opinion, is that once you've gone through the process and you've done the work, because it's work. I don't have a magic wand. It is work, and it's decisions, and it's processing, and it's all of those things. But then you have this space that has homes for everything. And not only can you put it away, but you can tell everybody in your life or who shares your space where things go. So there's no more excuses of, I can't put it away because I don't know where it goes.
Oh my gosh, it's so true, isn't it?
Right? Right?
Well, and I, of course, we all want the magic wand. I mean, by the way, if you figure out how to develop that and put a patent on it, just let us know.
I have a tiara I carry.
I mean, wouldn't that be that? Yeah, you do have a tiara, and I love that. So let's talk a moment about this getting stuck.
Okay.
And what are the behaviors when people get stuck? I know one of my behaviors when I start getting stuck is I will literally pick up a pile of stuff and all I do is move it to a different area. And then I pick it up again and I move it to a different area. That for me is indicator you are stuck.
We're shuffling.
What are some other ones that you notice?
I think it's a lot of churning, basically, in just different ways. Sometimes it's, I'm going to play with my phone for a while, or I'm going to call somebody, or I'm going to turn the TV on, or I'm going to move those piles from place to place to place to place. I'm just going to shut down and walk away and not deal with any of it. Like, all of that is part of that piece of overwhelm and just being... It's decision fatigue too. Sometimes you've made so many decisions that you're just like, I have no idea what to do with this pile. I'm just going to set it here. And then we never go back and revisit it. That's basically what clutter is just a delayed decision.
Yeah. I love that framing around what clutter is, delayed decision.
Yes.
So
yes.
What are some of the things that you do to help your clients make a decision?
You know, I think it's really just accountability. Now, I don't say just, it's a big process for them. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but my role in it is to listen to what they're saying and kind of maybe watch their body language a little bit. And like, they might say something come out of their mouth, but you might also see shoulders like this, or some kind of indication that the two are not, they're telling me what they think I want to hear perhaps, or what they want to believe, but their body is saying something else. And just asking more questions, or giving them the space they need to tell the story behind the item. For example, I had a client who was recently divorced. This was a few years ago, and she was staying in the home that she lived with her husband, but kind of wanted a reset, fresh space. So she realized that she hadn't really gone through the living room. So everything in there was kind of their joint items. So we went through one by one, picking things up. And I just so specifically remember her picking up, it was an ashtray, but I'm using this cup. She picked up this cup and I'm like, so tell me about, because she was clearly churning in her head. I'm like, tell me about this ashtray. She's like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's great aunt gave us that when they traveled somewhere and that woman never liked me and blah, blah, blah. It was this whole barrage of negativity around it. And she's like, so I think I should probably get rid of this. And I'm like, sounds like a great idea. And it went into the donate box and away it went. But I think if she hadn't had the space to tell that story, that ashtray probably would have sat there forever, and its own little negative vibes that it gave out every time she walked in the room and subconsciously saw it would have stayed with her.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's a lot
fascinating.
It is.
It's just fascinating because I'm quite certain that any of us talking right now, people watching, are probably looking around their space going, oh, I have one of those items, right? Because it may not be that a person's going through a divorce. It could be that there was a death of someone in the family, any of the above, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And there's something I know that I've heard you talk about before, this distinction between the memory with the person or the item, right? Like it's how we actually can start to separate that out a little bit, because that is a huge overwhelm place. The minute the emotion gets in, that's it, right? It's all done. So what are some strategies you could suggest for people if they're really struggling with some of those items and you don't happen to be there with them?
Honestly, it would be starting the process with easier things. So to build up a resistance, kind of like when you go to the gym, you don't start with the 50-pound barbells. You start with, I don't know, I don't go to the gym, but I'm guessing 2 pounds, 5 pounds, something like that. You start small. So easy decisions, like maybe you downsize the amount of pens you have in the pen drawer. I don't know, something like that that doesn't take any mental bandwidth and isn't here in your heart. And then I think people kind of find it becomes easier and easier and easier to make decisions that are more emotionally laden with stuff. If they're forced into a decision, like they've got to do something about this item, it's like, is there something we can do to replace the item? Can we take a picture of it? Can we, write a description of it and put it somewhere instead of keeping the item itself? Can we acknowledge that it served its purpose, that we love the person that it reminds us of, but we don't need to keep the item itself if it's not useful for us, and then let it go. And oftentimes finding a place for it to go where it can be used by somebody else is often helpful too. So using different strategies instead of just saying, throwing it, employing those strategies is often helpful.
And there's always somebody doing a garage sale.
Always.
There's always somebody collecting for this. There's always a place to donate, even though I know coming out of the pandemic, they were a little full. I mean, there was I know we had a carload for a little bit of time, and we just, each week I drove by to see if they were accepting it. But I kept it in the car, Tammy, because I didn't want it sitting in the space, right?
Yeah.
Like you say, once you get it out of the house, don't bring it back in.
Yes, absolutely. And that's oftentimes too, I will drop donations for clients because you can see the work they've done to get it to the point where they're ready to donate it. And then it just sits there and it's like, okay, let's just get it out of your house. Let's just get it out and drop it off. And that, I feel like that is a huge piece of tipping that wagon towards a positive piece too.
Absolutely. So how does someone get started? I'm envisioning that there are people watching and they're like, okay, this is all great. And it all sounds great, but how do I get started? I know you said sometimes start with the small things when it's a memory related thing.
Yep. But actually, that's true for anything. Like,
okay,
if that's the only thing that our viewers take away from this, it's please start small. Like, don't go after this and go rip everything out of your closet and try to make decisions about what you want to put back into it. While it's a very admirable thing to do, most of us get overwhelmed once we take everything out. So I'm more a fan of choosing smaller, less impactful, defined areas, like maybe a junk drawer, maybe a bathroom drawer, maybe I don't know, something that's contained, but not full of emotions. Photos, no, don't start with photos, start with something else. But there's basically a process, and it's I call it steps. It's analogy. It's sort, total, evaluate, place, and straighten. So basically you have to sort everything you have, because if you don't know, if we're in the kitchen, if you don't know how many spatulas you have, how can you make a decision about how many you want to keep? So it's sorting, then it's evaluating how many you have and how many you need to keep. And then it's placing them in a home. So it's deciding where their homes are, deciding what kind of container you need for them, if anything. And then it's, I lost track. Place. Oh yeah.
I love it.
It's perfect. The most important step to me after you've done all that is the straighten. So we all think that it's a one and done. We all think that we're going to get organized and then we're never going to have to think about it again. But if you think about how many items you bring in the house subconsciously every day, most of us come in and out with a bag every day of something. And if we have other people in our homes, they're bringing stuff in. So the straighten is more like going through and putting everything away, pulling things that don't make sense for where we're at in our life right now, and getting rid of them. So it's a constant, it's like the dishwasher or the clothes machine. You have to constantly load, reload, load, reload, load, reload, or they don't work. It's the same with organizing. You have to continually, it won't be as hard as the initial one, but you have to continue the process again and again and again in order to maintain a space.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one of the things that just keeps coming up for me is the comfort zones that we get in around our clutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself stuck in this so many times where we get so used to literally living amid clutter or living amid something that just is not organized, that it's a comfort zone. We don't even know that it's an issue until we do. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, how have I lived like this for so long, right?
Yes.
What are some things we can do to become more aware of those day-to-day places that we are walking into every day?
I think anytime we think about, and I honestly, I just did it this morning. I'm going to admit it. Like I have a clock in my bathroom that hasn't, the battery's dead on it. Every freaking morning I say, I'm going to change the battery on that. And I haven't done it. And it's been like 2 weeks. It's like, just do it. If it takes 60 seconds or less to do something, to put it away, to make a decision, do it right then. Like, I think if you really pay attention to what's going on in your head as you go through your day, there's more and more things that you think, I need to take care of that. I need to do this. And they're little things. And I always tell people the investment we make up front of tackling those at the time is going to save us so much time down the road. We get the time back. It's like investing our money. We get it back, but we don't want to take the time right there because we're so busy, but it's so worth it to do it. And a lot of times during sessions, we will tackle little inconsequential things, and people will text me later and go, what a game changer. I had a client whose garage door opener didn't work. So every morning she'd go out and lift it manually, put it down. She'd have to get out of the car. And I'm like, can we just call the garage repair guy dude that comes and we made the call? It was literally making the call. And she texted me that day. She goes, what a game changer. I do not have to get out of my car in the sub-zero temperature to get into my garage. And I'm like, a call.
Yeah. But there was a comfort zone around it. And
exactly.
It was making the call. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That's how many of us have. I mean, I'd invite everybody right now, just jot down some of exactly what Tammy's talking about. The less than 60-second, make the call, make the appointment, get the thing out of the house. Like those are things you can do right now to help 2022 go more smoothly. And I love that you're bringing this up. You and I often share conversation around freeing up the headspace.
Yeah.
Because this stuff takes up so much headspace.
It does. It totally does. It's like the clock for me this morning. Again, how many mornings have I said, I'm going to do that battery? How many nights have I gone to bed and not done it? And every morning I'm mad at myself because I haven't done it. It's like,
yeah. You know what though? Thank you for normalizing this for us, because it's like all of us. It's like in the coaching space, right? It's like I still have things that I'm working on too, right? Like it just is what it is, and I love this.
Yeah.
I want to have you walk us through what it's like when you work with clients. I know you work both in person, online, especially right now.
Okay.
I want for you to walk us through that. Before we do that though, just to make sure we don't miss anybody in this, how do people get in touch with you? Because I know some people have to head back to lunch, that type of thing. I want to make sure that they can get in touch with you. What is the best way to do that? And I'm sure you do some kind of a newsletter for people.
I actually don't do a newsletter. It's one of those shoulds. I probably should, but I don't. So the best way is either you can do Google My Business and my contact information is right there. It's just, or go to the website, Tidy Tammy Organizes, and you can actually schedule. There's a little button right there. If you want to chat with me for 15 minutes on the phone about your project or where you're at, or to see if we're a good fit, or just to feel things out, you can schedule a free complimentary 15-minute phone call and just see where it goes from there. Like sometimes it's a really good fit for people. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I can point them to a different resource that's going to work better for them. But either way, I'm happy to talk and find out how I can help them.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And, and here's the thing. I think where I'm envisioning in my newsletter, you do some amazing posts on Instagram.
Yes.
And Facebook. So I think where I probably in my mind, it's like, oh, there's such good stuff there. So people can follow you even right on Instagram too.
Yep. On Instagram, it's I'm the organizer. And then on Facebook, it's Tidy Tammy Organizes.
Yeah, which is awesome. Seriously, friends, be following her, because even just some of those little goodies that you toss in there are like, oh my gosh, it makes all the difference in the world.
Sometimes it just lands, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I, of course, coincidence, right? Like there's that serendipity moment where, oh my gosh, I so needed to hear this, or, oh, this relates to this project. And I love those. I just don't believe they're by accident that I happened to see something that you put up there. So talk to us about working with you. What does this experience look like for people?
Well, it's really different for each individual person. So to put it into an elevator speech is kind of a challenge. But generally, when I'm on site with someone, we've usually had the consultation on the phone, because I want to make sure it's a good fit for them. I don't want to waste their time if they're looking for something that I can't do. But generally, there's some anxiety for clients the first time because they don't know me. They're afraid I'm going to judge them. They feel guilty about their whatever it goes on. But the judging is the last thing I do, because I have my own stuff too. So I want people to feel comfortable. So I come into the home, we talk. They generally will show me the space that we've chatted about on the phone, but sometimes that evolves into showing me everything. And that's okay too, because it's like a snowball. Sometimes when you start in this area, then you end up in that area, and then that area, and then that area. And it just kind of, I will look at as much as they want to share with me, as much space as they want to share, because a lot of talking happens then, and it helps me kind of figure out the process and the direction we're going and the goals. And we talk a lot about what we want the space to look like. So there's a lot of back and forth communication, a lot of questions. And then we kind of, the first time, pick a space. And I usually cherry pick, like what's the easiest decision-making process for this session? What can we get out of here that's going to feel like a very impactful thing for them to have? So I want it to be easy so that it's successful for them, so that they feel good when I leave, and that they can continue the process. But again, it's super different. Sometimes I'm making phone calls for people, for clients, things that they don't want to deal with certain problems. So we're making the phone calls and getting the ball rolling and that kind of thing. Sometimes we're physically moving stuff from place to place. Sometimes we're filing paper. It's just really different for each person and what their particular area of challenge is.
Yeah. Well, and with your background in the human behavior, I would just think this helps so much, because you really do start to see these patterns.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that just helps you immensely as you're working with people.
It does. And you've taught me to be curious about things. And I love, I'm curious about why this is happening, not how come this is over here. It's more like, I'm curious how this particular item ended up over here. And sometimes they forgot that it was even there, or there's a really long story about how it got there and it leads to other things. So being curious about the environment we're in helps them look at it with new eyes too, which is amazing and refreshing for both of us. Yeah.
Tammy, we're getting some great comments from people. One of them, when we were talking about asking, channeling the inner Tammy, somebody had written, "Oh my gosh, I do that too. I ask myself, what would Tammy Callahan Schatzko do? She has helped me organize." Somebody else wrote that they have worn the tiara.
Yes.
Probably somebody you've worked with. There's something in here about newspapers. It must have been something we were talking about, that one of those things that, moves around. I'm not sure exactly, but thanks for those comments, friends. We love to see them. And of course, if you have any questions, in anything we do not get to live, of course, we'll go back and get them answered.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
So let's summarize for people then. They're moving into 2022. They're really looking at this, getting organized, getting some declutter out. What are the top 3 things that you would share with the audience today?
I'm so glad you asked, because I wrote them down and I'm ready.
Yay! It's a good thing we got there. I was going to say, did I forget anything? You would have been, oh yeah, here's my.
I think the one thing we talked about was starting small. Like that is huge. Like it's like you're not going to lose 50 pounds your first week of dieting. Like start small, choose something, build on that foundation of success and go there. The other thing is to create a donation box or a bag or some receptacle you have in the house that once you've made a decision about this item, it has a home in the donation box. As soon as that donation box is full, you put it in the car, you drop it off, you start another box, so that there's always a home, even for the donations. And I like having one in the laundry room too, a bag, because for example, I have a pair of pants on today that I absolutely hate. And the minute I get home, they're going out because they're uncomfortable. So it's things like that. They're not going back in my closet. Like I'm going to wash them, but I'm not going to take them back up to my room and put them away. I'm going to put them in the donate bag and they're going to go away. Always having a home for them. It's like a repeat cycle, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
And the final thing that I think is super helpful is if you are overwhelmed in a space, using something like a hula hoop. I do have a hula hoop that we use occasionally to put around and define the area you're going to work within. If there's clutter everywhere or there's things that are drawing you visually away from the space, having it define, this is what we're going to work on today. We are not going to leave until we finish this area. Helps immensely from getting distracted and shuffling or churning things around because we're stuck.
I love that idea. Well, and think about the size of a hula hoop. That's perfect
Yep.
because it's like, okay, we can start here. And if you still feel energy, of course you could add another hoop, right? You could do another hoop. You could hoop on. You can hoop on. But this is, and the other thing I think is it's okay to have fun.
Yes, yes, yes. Music, TV. I mean, if the TV distraction, if that helps people process, or having music on, or actually, a lot of times it's really good conversation. I have learned so much about art and crafts and crazy amount of stuff that I didn't know before. And I always feel like it's an honor that they share this information with me as they're telling me stories about the stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win for me.
Oh, absolutely. What brings you the most joy from working with clients?
Honestly, when they have that light bulb moment that they don't have to keep something that they've been keeping forever, and you literally can see the shoulders relax, and it's like this sense of freedom, and all of a sudden they're able to let go of all kinds of things that have been holding them back. Like you can't get paid for that enough. It's just an amazing experience, and it's an honor to see it happen.
Yeah. And I just love how authentic you are about this experience because I mean, I've worked with you, I've seen you with other people. There's, it's like almost like a magic that happens in that space, but it's a sacred space. I
It
mean,
is.
you are working with people's memories, their personal living space. I mean, I remember, I mean, there might be people out here that can resonate with this. Do you remember? I call them like, well, I don't really like to let people in my personal space. I mean, this is a big deal. Like I'm out there talking to a lot of people, but I'm a very private person about my world and my life. And I remember you and I having that conversation, and it took a while for me to like relax into, okay, someone is in my home and they're going through things,
Yes.
right? And I cannot be the only one that goes through that.
Yeah.
And so
I've learned to ask people before I touch things. And now it's so normal for me that I do it everywhere. Can I touch this? And it's not, well, because, I never know what's important to them. And what if I grabbed something that they were like, oh my God, I can't believe that person touched that. Like,
yeah,
just having that respect for their space too, no matter what I think about it or the value I place, it doesn't matter. It's theirs. It's their sacred space,
yes.
like you said. And it's super important to be mindful of that when you're with them.
Yes, absolutely. By the way, somebody else just put a comment. No judgment, no condemnation from Tammy. What a great compliment to you. That's a beautiful compliment. So my gosh, I feel like we could go on and on and on, but alas, we must get on to organizing our own lives and our own everything.
Yes.
We just want to remind people they can check out your website at Tidy Tammy Organizes. Make sure that they are following you. I'm the organizer on Instagram, and then it's the Tidy Tammy on Facebook. Boy, we got mouthfuls here all of a sudden. I don't know why I was like, but I got the same. It's like we have all these things that we do. And I just want to invite you to, at a minimum, follow Tammy. She is amazing. And I really invite you to check out a consultation with her. If you have not worked with her, give yourself that gift.
It's no pressure, no pressure. Like if you choose not to, that's totally fine. It's like no pressure.
Yeah. But there's something in here, Tammy, that's just coming up for me. And maybe I could be projecting around this, but I don't know if I am. But I'm going to just put it in the space. Why not? I feel like people are getting more clear about the need to take care of themselves, the need, whether it's fueling the body, whether it's movement, even breathing. But I believe that the decluttering and organizing is a piece of this. And I feel like the work you do is more timely than ever. I just feel like people are ready for this and ready to see this connection of what's happening. So I just, I love that you brought up the things about giving yourself permission. I'm just saying, like, what would it look like to give yourself permission to say, okay, it's time, it's time.
Yeah.
So reach out. It can't hurt to have a conversation, and you can see how great Tammy is to talk to anyway. And she's amazing. She's just amazing. So thank you so much for joining us. And I love this. Start small. Start somewhere, grab a hula hoop, and right. Bring.
Yep.
You can do a little box, and I'm thinking, grab an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Start there. I mean, just start. The whole
just start. There you go. Just
started, right?
Just start.
And when you get overwhelmed, I thought you gave some great strategies. So Tammy, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And bye, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks all of you for choosing to join us today for Infusion of Joy Winter Series. We want to remind you that every Wednesday for the next 3 months, we'll have our winter series. Next week, our special guest is going to be Grace Hare. If you have not met Grace, she is phenomenal. She's going to talk to us about how we process grief, how we set boundaries, and yes, maybe even a little about what it looks like to cuddle. More on that next week. And Grace's show will be at 7:30 p.m. at night next Wednesday. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. Wishing you abundance, blessings, peace, and joy. Have a great day. See you next week.